Okay, here we're looking at page 38. This is just a chance for you to practice and label the graph. We're not actually going to do this together as a class, just to see if you know all the what information you do remember. So far you should be able to say the zeros, all of the factors that you get from those zeros, all the maxes, all the mins, the end behavior, the kind of function, the degree, the multiplicity, all of that information. What we are going to put on here together, if you write down here, is the intervals of increasing and decreasing. And decreasing. They didn't get their own vocab word because they are pretty self-explanatory. You're just going to look at the graph and identify where is it pointing up for increasing and where is it pointing down for decreasing. Just a reminder that we do read from left to right. There we go. And these are all going to be our x values because we're going to compare it to the x-axis. So we're only looking left to right. It doesn't matter up and down specifically. We're just looking where it's increasing and marking that on the x-axis. So I'm going to look at increasing first. So looking back at my graph, I have two areas that I can see are pointing in the up direction. So right here is pointing in the up direction. So from this spot here until right here, it changes direction. So it would be right there. And that area starts at -2 and goes until the halfway mark here, which is probably going to be around -1.25. And we're using parentheses for these intervals because while these numbers are on the graph, they are not actively changing or not actively increasing. They're at the point where the graph is actively changing from increasing to decreasing. So they're a turning point, not a point of increase or decrease. That's why they are parentheses. And then we have another area. So I'm going to put and. And if you look back at our graph, right here is another change. And after this change, we are pointing up all the way to here. And let's see, this point here is at the origin of 0 on the x-axis. And then we're pointing up this whole time here. And as we're going up, we're going to this arrow. And this arrow, while yes, it is pointing in the up direction, more importantly, where is it going on the x-axis, which is left to right. And it's very slowly going to the right. So it's pointing in the right direction, which means it's going to positive infinity because arrows continue on forever and can only go to positive or negative infinity. So on this graph, we are increasing from 0 all the way until infinity. So from 0 until infinity. Perfect. Now, our graph will always be increasing or decreasing if it is a polynomial function. So now what we're going to do is find the areas of decreasing. If you get really good at this, instead of having to look at the graph, you can just look at one of your options here. So we have increasing, or if we had decreasing, and then just look for the gaps. So right here we have a gap. We don't have any of the numbers less than -2. And then here we have a gap from -1.25 to 0. But let's look on the graph and look at those gaps. So here's the gap here. This one starts here at this arrow and is pointing down. It's going decreasing until it hits -2. And if you look at that arrow, yes, it is pointing in the up direction, but we want to compare it to the x-axis. Compared to the x-axis, it is slowly going to the left, which is the negative half of the x-axis. So this means our graph is in the decreasing direction, so pointed down from negative infinity until it hits this minimum at -2. And you can see that is the gap that we were missing right here. And there's going to be one more section, so we're going to put and. Look back at my graph. And if I look here, right at this turning point, and then I start going down, and I go down until I hit this minimum. So we went down from -1.25 until we hit this minimum here at 0. And you'll notice that was also the other missing gap. And there we go. So when you're working through these intervals, they will always completely cover all the numbers from negative to positive infinity. So once you finish, or you think you finished the question, just double check and make sure that you could start at negative infinity and get all the way to positive infinity without any gaps. Perfect.